Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ah, it's low-hanging fruit, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care who's playing rock, paper, scissors with people. We'll get to that in just a second. Welcome to the Farzy Show. My name is Marc Farzy. This is the Steven Singer Studios. We got, as every day, we got a lot to get to today. Our guest today is a great friend of mine in the business, a great man in general. His name is Jim Jackson of the Philadelphia Flyers, NBC Sports Philadelphia, play-by-play announcer for your Philadelphia Flyers. We're going to talk to him about all things Flyers. And also, Jim gets into it himself. A little bit more free time he's going to be having this summer. Jim shies away from nothing. We'll have a conversation with him coming up, and he's also doing something great for all the people. Now, here's what's interesting. Once I entered this digital world in a full-time capacity, I've gotten a lot of requests to come on other people's web shows, other people's podcasts, and all that. And it got me thinking, man, that Jim Jackson's a brilliant individual because everybody wants to do a podcast. Everybody wants to do a show. But not everybody's a broadcaster. Not everybody's a showman. So who better to talk to than Jim Jackson? Look what Jim's doing with the good people that want to be broadcasters here, huh? He's got his own little clinic basically going on right now where he will coach you up. And he talks about that with me later today. You'll hear the interview. We recorded it yesterday, obviously. And Jim Jackson, he's a broadcasting coach now. And if you're doing a podcast, you're doing a show, Jim can hook you up. Jim can help you out. Jim can tell you the way to do it. The right way to do it. JJ Broadcasting Coaching at gmail.com. That's how you can get a hold of him, and he can become your broadcasting coach. So we'll talk to JJ about that. I think it's a brilliant thing, again, because the market that exists for that right now is a great idea. I could never do what Jim is doing right now. I'm a terrible teacher. I'm maybe a better coach, but not a good teacher. I go to the frustrated alley way too quick because the way it works in my idiot brain is how it's computing up here. Oh, God, I would never pass that to somebody else. I can encourage. I can motivate. Coach. Okay. Teach. No. Probably not. Not going to work for me. Let's talk about some coaching, shall we? Now, we do have the highlights, as many people do, when it comes to Nick Sirianni's press conference yesterday. We do have the highlights of everything going on in that category and everything that people have been kicking around and talking about and discussing at great length and all the stuff that people have got to regarding his demeanor at press conferences. I saw a lot of people hitting the Twitter yesterday and a lot of people taking to social media to say that the energy of Nick Sirianni is contagious. Okay. All right. It's contagious. You definitely know that the guy loves ball and he loves players that love ball, right? You get that from him. But what I don't get from him is whether or not this guy's going to be a good head coach or not. And we're not going to know that. Let's get the obvious out of the way. We're not going to know that until the season starts, till we actually see him coach, till we actually see his game plan and all that. But, man, I don't hold it against him for playing rock, paper, scissors with draft prospects. And in case you haven't seen it yet, they talked about it yesterday during the press conference that had Andy Weidel, Howie Roseman, and Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni said that when they're testing the how competitive players are, because that's part of his attributes of a football player, is you got to be competitive, which is good. He said that he would virtually play rock, paper, scissors with draft prospects to gauge how competitive they are. They also played other games like Jeopardy. And here's the thing. Nobody asked them specifically about what they did with draft prospects. Nobody asked them specifically about what type of games they played. Nick Sirianni volunteered this information for people. Simply saying, no, I play rock, paper, scissors with these guys, right? So I like to gauge how competitive they are, right? With how competitive in rock, paper, scissors. We also play Jeopardy. Are you talking smack to me? Am I talking smack to you? If you lose, what do you like, right? And that's how I like to play these guys, to gauge their competitiveness, right? That's kind of how it felt watching it. We'll play it for you later. We'll also let you hear from Howie Roseman, some of the stuff about his approach to the draft. Our friend Mike K from NJ.com asked him a pretty great question. Hey, Howie, basically this was the question, and I'm paraphrasing. Hey, Howie, everyone knows you suck at drafting, so how do you take that into this draft? That was kind of the way. It's not a quote. Paraphrasing. And Howie talks about how proud he is of his staff. We'll get to that. Howie also talked about, he was asked about it from Jeff McClain, why he moved back in the draft to 12 from 6 to 12. So it's a lot of interesting stuff there as far as, and I think also Howie gave up a little too much information. And he said something he didn't necessarily, I think, want to say. And it had to do with the quarterback position. And I kind of felt like it went under the radar a little bit. Howie was asked about trading back. And when we let you hear the cut and see the cut in its totality, there was something that really jumped out about it. And it was that Howie knew once San Francisco was moving up in the draft to 3, they were going to be taking a quarterback, which was interesting. That's the moment the Eagles decided to trade back. If that's the moment and that's the reason they decided to trade back, then they were definitely eyeing a quarterback early on in this draft. And if I'm Jalen Hurts, I'm thinking to myself, I'm sorry, what was that? You're gonna, okay. All right. I guess I got to really attack this to make sure you guys know that I am the quarterback of the future. And I hope that he would take that as motivation. I doubt it's even going to get to Jalen Hurts at all, but I thought it was something that perked my eyes up a little bit. The low-hanging fruit with the rock, paper, scissors, I know that's something that a lot of people are going to make fun of. I will promise you this. I'm not going to make fun of it as much as I'm going to have fun with it. So today, when I go out to do Farzy in the field, I'm basically just going to challenge people to rock, paper, scissors just to see how competitive the city of Philadelphia is. Do you talk smack to me? Will I talk smack to you? How do you handle it? Are you a baller? Do you love ball? Like that kind of thing. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to see how people – I'm going to see if Nick Sirianni really does like the people of Philadelphia because I want to see how competitive they are. How about that? So that's what we're going to do for Farzy in the field when I go out today. We'll let you guys see that tomorrow. We also have we have some conversation to get into here regarding the Sixers, obviously. We got our big bet segment today. We also have some Phillies conversation with a great win yesterday. Bryce Harper stepping up again, which was great. And then obviously Andrew Knapp comes up with the game-winning hit. The Sixers did play last night against the Suns. I told you that the safe bet in this Sixers game wasn't necessarily them winning. It was Joel Embiid's over, and he certainly hit on that last night for his point, so I hope he cashed in on that. The reason I didn't want to bet the game was because I had no idea what their starting lineup was going to look like. And lo and behold, not only was Ben Simmons still out, not only was Tobias Harris still out, but also Seth Curry was also out of last night's game. So I'm glad I didn't touch that. You had 3 or 5 starters out. With that being said, and I know Joel Embiid said after the game last night, there's no positives you could take from a loss. I'm glad that that's his mindset. I'm glad that's what he said. Good for him. But from the spectator's angle, from my angle, there's absolutely positives you could take away from this loss. Overall, it's a negative. You lost the game. But let me see some other things that will give me some hope going forward to the point where you do have a full roster. These guys in the role that they're in, especially in the secondary unit with George Hill, you can have a lot of confidence going forward. So a couple of positives that I'll take away from this game was that Joel Embiid still played dominant basketball. 38 points. You could tell that he was being hampered by the knee injury still. It's still something that is very much on his mind, still something that's very much affecting his game, and he was still dominant, went out there with 38 points. I have no doubt in my mind, if Ben and Tobias and Seth Curry are healthy, the Sixers win this basketball game. Another positive, George Hill. My takeaway from his debut with the Sixers was it was more or less a get your feet wet game, get back in a rhythm, get the feel back of what it's like to be on the court again, get that feeling down. This game, no holds barred. This game for George Hill was go do your thing, fella. Hit a couple of threes for you, made a couple of great driving layups for you, got fouled en route to the basket, had a couple of great assists as well, setting up other teammates. George, this was the guy the Sixers traded for. The guy that played last night against the Phoenix Suns, George Hill. That's the George Hill that the Sixers traded for. That's the George Hill that I'm very much looking forward to coming in and being that veteran presence off the bench that can score for you, that can draw fouls for you, that can defend for you. That's the guy I'm looking forward to see coming off the bench for the Sixers come postseason. It reminded me of kind of where you would want Shake Milton to be in a couple of years. And obviously, George Hill is already at that point. So I think with him, and Shake really struggled last night. I mean, you want to talk about a negative on top of a negative on top of the loss. Shake Milton struggled mightily last night, and that cost him. In a game you did not have a lot of room for error, Shake Milton did not have his best game as a 76er. Dwight Howard, I thought it was funny. He got into it with Dario Saric a little bit, kind of an eye roll there. I thought the ref called a technical. He didn't need to call. But overall, I loved seeing what I saw from George Hill, loved seeing what I saw from Joel Embiid, and Matisse Thybulle getting put in the starting lineup, being assigned to Devin Booker and holding him under 20 points and having two monster blocks on Devin Booker in that game was a sight to see. He was all over Devin Booker last night. And if you need to know who's going to be a good shutdown defender, a guy to get a marquee player off his game, maybe a change of pace later and come in as a defensive replacement, I mean, I don't know if we had any other doubt. I don't know if we had any doubt that it wouldn't be about Matisse Thybulle, but he was damn good last night against Devin Booker, and that was great to watch. The guy that really jumped out to me from the Suns, though, was Chris Paul. And we talked about it yesterday about how he started to kind of nose his way into that MVP conversation. Not really, no shot, but people have brought his name up in the last couple of weeks. You saw why last night, especially in the third quarter, fourth quarter, hit some threes that helped extend the Suns' lead and really put a deadlock on it. Devin Booker obviously had that baseline jumper. That was a great shot. That was his best shot of the game. But Chris Paul was really the guy making everything go. Chris Paul was the guy being the orchestrator, being the maestro, to make the Suns work as he has been all season long. He has been the big difference maker for the Phoenix Suns. So watching that team play yesterday, great performance by them, but no doubt in my mind, Sixers healthy roster, they're a much better team than the Phoenix Suns. Now it's just a matter of time. Doc Rivers comes out after the game last night and says he doesn't know if Ben Simmons is going to be making the trip. He doesn't know about when he's going to have his healthy roster back. He doesn't know when he's going to have Seth Curry back. Doesn't know when he's going to have Tobias Harris back. Doesn't know when Ben Simmons is going to be able to travel to join the Sixers. So right now they're just kind of in limbo. And at some point now, you got 2 games coming up here against the Bucks. You're going to need your full roster, and you got Joel Embiid, who is now, it seems like, re-nursing that knee injury. So I don't know where the Sixers go from here. I have no doubt that they're still going to be a dominant team in the Eastern Conference, but I'm talking about over the next week of play, how much they're going to have to fight to make sure they don't, that this doesn't go, hit their. We just talked about it not having a long losing streak. We just talked about that with Kyle Neubeck 2 days ago. That's something I would hate to see right now towards the end of the season as things start to wind down. So we'll continue to talk about the Sixers during our Morning Rush segment. We're going to let you hear from Jim Jackson, play-by-play announcer for the Philadelphia Flyers for NBC Sports Philadelphia. We'll get to that. And then, of course, we got to celebrate a very, very nice Phillies win yesterday to avoid the sweep. When Darren Ruff tied things up, well, first off, hat tip to Mickey Moniak. Now, 2 days in a row, the center field spot has not been a bad thing to talk about for the Phillies. And part of that is thanks to Mickey Moniak. Got a hit 2 days ago. Yesterday, got his first big league home run. And I remember people talking about Mickey Moniak. I was one of these people. He's got to build muscle. He's got to add weight and all that stuff. And we're talking about like a 16, 17-year-old kid who just got drafted into Major League Baseball. And like, hell yeah, he's got to gain weight. Hell yeah, he's got to put on muscle. Well, 2 years ago now, seeing Mickey Moniak up at Reading, I went up there to interview him. And you had seen the pictures, you'd seen some video that he had bulked up, and then I'm standing next to him like, damn, son, put on some weight, good for you. And yeah, he was hitting the weight room, he was making sure his diet was right, and he was doing everything he could to get to the major league level. Well, obviously that happened last year. He made his debut, had a pretty solid spring training, great to see that, hit a couple of home runs there as well. And then yesterday hit his first big league home run, a 3-run home run that gave the Phillies a nice 3-0 lead. Zach Eflin, I was a little worried about after the rain delay, didn't know if he was going to come back out. Gave the Phillies a great outing. That was great. And then, of course, Darren Ruff steps up and ends up tying the game with a 3-run home run to center field. And you just kind of had a feeling that at some point in this series, if Darren Ruff got some more ABs, he was going to make he was going to make you not pay, but you knew he was going to come back and hurt you. That doesn't always happen. If it could happen with the great Rob Barajas, it could certainly happen with Darren Ruff coming back to haunt the Phillies. And that's what he did yesterday. Then the Giants take a 5-4 lead. And I knew Bryce Harper was coming up in the next inning. And what have we talked about with Bryce Harper as long as the season's been going on? And really even dating back to last year. Bryce Harper has to be the guy. No ifs, ands, or buts. Bryce Harper has to be the guy that is the difference maker. He has to be the guy in a situation like Aaron Nola's gem the other day. No offense. Bryce Harper to the rescue. I'll get you 2 runs right here. And that helps you get you the win. Aaron Nola pitches the gem. Bryce Harper provides the offense. Yesterday, he steps up again. You're down a run, and he goes ahead and hits the reset button for you with, I believe, his 4th home run of the season to right center field, just barely over that short fence in right center field. And he ties the ball game, hits the reset button. We're starting over again, folks. And that's what Bryce Harper did for you yesterday. Gave you the opportunity to win this game. Gave you another life. Gave you another opportunity to win this game. And what happens? Andrew Knapp comes up in the bottom of the 9th inning. And he just puts a little single out there to left field. And Bryce Harper's on second base. Rounds the bases, scores the game-winning run. Phillies win, salvage the sweep, get back to some 500 baseball, which is good to see. Phillies, you needed to get that win before you go on the road trip. They're going to go out to Colorado now. Very impressed with the Phillies did. They did not give up. They kept fighting. They got help from guys like Mickey Moniak. You don't exactly expect a lot of help from. And you got help from Andrew Knapp as well, and another strong start from Zach Eflin. Good way to salvage a win in the series and avoid the brooms at Citizens Bank Park. So that was great to see. Very excited about what the season has in store for the Phillies. Before we get to Jim Jackson, now here's what I got for you. Coming up on our Morning Rush segment, we're going to let you see all the highlights. There's 3 cuts that I just think you have to see from the Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, Andy Weidel press conference that explain how he's thinking and moving back in the draft. Nick Sirianni and rock, paper, scissors, obviously. And also Howie Roseman and how Howie is perceived with his draft history. We'll get to all that and more coming up in the Morning Rush. That much I promise you. Right now, I do want to tell you about Steven Singer Jewelers. And here at the Steven Singer Studio, we like to make sure we send everybody to Steven Singer Jewelers. Do what I do. Go to Steven Singer Jewelers. And you know why you got to do that? Well, it's for a very simple reason. Mother's Day is right around the corner. And if you want to make sure that you're taking care of mom, you got to get the beautiful, the gorgeous, brand new gold dip rose from Steven Singer Jewelers, the sunshine yellow gold dip rose that dazzles and sparkles. And it's just a great way to show mom how much you love her this Mother's Day. And how about this? Steven's new rose, bright yellow. Like I said, it dazzles and sparkles. And Steven is doing something because he's in the love business. He wants to make sure everybody's feeling the love. And we certainly need love considering the year that it's been. Steven is taking a portion of the proceeds from this gold dip rose, like he does with all his gold dip roses, and he's going to buy food from local restaurants, and he's going to pay for lunch, dinner, whatever, from our hospital heroes, courtesy of Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. How great is that? How great is that, right? That's the love business, folks, not just for diamonds, not just for jewelry, not just for roses, but for our hospital heroes and our local restaurants as well. So basically, you help a great cause in buying one of these roses. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. Buy a gold dip rose for Mother's Day. Steve will take a portion of those proceeds, buy food from local restaurants, feed our essential workers, first responders, hospital workers, doctors, nurses, all our healthcare heroes, and you feel great about doing it as well. It's a win-win-win, if you ask me. Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut. The rose comes with a personalized gift message. It comes with a lifetime guarantee and fast and free shipping. Simply say, I love you, and honor mom on Mother's Day. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com. The other corner of 8th and Walnut, every day the perfect price at Steven Singer Jewelers. All right, without further ado, let's get to our man here on the Zatos Investments guest line. I love this. This guy is one of the best people you could talk to in the city of Philadelphia. One of the nicest men you could ever come across. Without further ado, let's talk to our friend Jim Jackson about all things Flyers and how Jim's going to have a little bit more time on his hands this summer. It's now on the Zatos Investments guest line. Folks, you have no idea how good this is to say. It feels so good. The great Jim Jackson. Jim Jackson, how are you?
I'm doing great, Farzy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. We got so much to get to. Obviously, we got some Flyers conversation. We got some other stuff we want to get to. But you're also doing this thing, which I think is incredible. You are doing a broadcasting a coaching gig. You just started this new venture, right, where you're coaching up wannabe broadcasters?
Yeah, I started it back in November when I was informed I'd have a little extra time in the summer. So I was actually planning on kind of revving it up, building it up to the summer, but then the pandemic delayed the hockey season. So we had November, December pretty much free. So we started taking on students, and it just blew our minds. We had a tremendous response. I was busy throughout both months, and I've kept busy throughout the season. I haven't been able to do as many, obviously, with the hockey season so congested this year. But we basically do one-on-one Zooms with kids who are interested in any form of broadcasting. It doesn't have to be just play-by-play. I've done sports talk. I've done studio. I've done a lot of different things in my career. So we can talk about anything, podcasting, a show such as yours, anything. We basically that has to do with broadcasting, and there are so many ways in which people can get involved in broadcasting now. So, and any age. I've had a 12-year-old, I've had a 50-year-old, so there's a good range there. And we can do one-on-ones this summer. We're looking to, as the hockey season winds down, unfortunately for the Flyers, looks like it might wind down in the regular season. We'll start up in May, June with group sessions, which will be a little more affordable for some of the people who couldn't afford the one-on-ones. And just looking forward to continuing it. It's been really great, Mark, to see all the people out there, the young people, and even people who are reaching into their middle ages that are really, really excited about this business and want to learn and be like sponges. So it's been a good experience. It's been energizing for me.
That's incredible. And I do want to show some stuff real quick, because here's what I love about the idea. Jim, whenever somebody would come up to anybody in the business, you, me, whoever, and they would say, how do I get into the business? I would say, okay, well, do you have a show? And they would say, no, I don't have a show. I was like, well, get a show. Everybody wants to do a show nowadays. Everyone wants to do a podcast. Everyone wants to do a web show, whatever it might be. So go ahead and start a show for yourself. And with that market ever increasing, you're the perfect guy to talk to. All your experience, all your versatility. I mean, I met you, Jim, and I don't even know if you remember this. I met you when you were at WIP doing shifts during the hockey lockout of 05? 04, 05? Yeah. 04, 05. And you were doing...
I do remember me.
Yeah.
I do.
And I just remember, I was like, wow, JJ's doing all sports. And you were doing college football, you were doing baseball, you're doing everything.
Yeah.
And this is such a great platform, not just for the students to learn from you, but also get the experience. And you're going to think I'm blowing smoke. I'm not blowing smoke. You're just so damn versatile, Jim Jackson. To give this information to these kids, these people that are so interested, you're a treat to all of them, I'm sure.
Well, I try. I make it fun. It's not like me lecturing. It's back and forth, especially the one-on-ones. We'll see how it is with the groups. But the one thing, versatility is so big in this business now. I mean, newspaper, radio, television, streaming is all becoming one, right? So we have this huge media complex now, which kids can get involved with, or even, and again, I've had several people. I had a guy who used to be selling cars, who's now in his 30s. He's really a good play-by-play hockey now. So he's in the juniors. He's starting over. He's in the juniors, and he's good enough. He'll be emerging from that at some point. But to try to help these guys, and I do want to point out, anybody who is in the program, I mentor them the rest of the way. I mean, they can feel free to email me, call me, feel like somebody if they have a question or they're having a bad day or having a good day for that matter. They can call me or email me, and I'll be there for them moving forward. So it's not just like you're buying 3 sessions or 3 Zoom sessions. You're also going to have me along for the ride if you so choose. And if not, you can cast me aside. That's not a problem either.
Yeah, that's JJ. Forget about him. I don't need to email that guy anymore, that character. JJ, I gotta ask you. We gotta talk some Flyers here, and I want to get some other stuff as well. But I started out this season with the Flyers having a lot of expectations, having high expectations, and unfortunately, to this point, 11 games left in the season. They'll play obviously against the Rangers in Madison Square Garden tomorrow, but tonight when we actually air this interview. What happened this season? I know it seems like a lot, but it seems like goaltending was an issue. Defense was an issue. Not generating offense at the right time. There were different parts throughout the season where the main problem just changed from almost game to game, week to week type of thing. What do you look back on before the season wraps up? What do you look back on as really the main problem that faced the Flyers this year?
Wow. I mean, it's so tough. It's kind of like the big question, because as I had huge expectations for this team. Who wouldn't? It was a young team coming off a season in which they made it to the second round, and for a stretch of almost 4 months, they were the second best team in the NHL last year. So that's not a streak, Mark. That's 4 months. That's significant. So we all had this feeling that this team was on the rise. They did lose by a surprising move, Matt Niskanen, and when he retired, that was going to be a concern. But to say that this season's gone where it's gone because of Niskanen would be to say he's Bobby Orr and Doug Harvey and Ray Bork and all of them combined. I mean, he's a very good player and a really good locker room guy, but one guy does not make a team fall this far. So it has been a mystery to many of us. Early in the season, they weren't playing well, but they were winning. Mainly their goaltending was actually pretty good early in the season. They were giving up goals, but they were facing a ton of shots, a ton of great chances. And then as the team started to play a little bit better, they had their COVID outbreak, which did sack them because they had to play some games with 6 forwards out. Not many teams can win with that. But then when they started getting those players back, they were actually out shooting teams, but the goaltending really started to leak badly, and the defense never did shore up. So they were actually out shooting teams and losing. You can look back at this season and see how the shot count went one way and the goal and the win count went another. It doesn't make any sense. It's really a mystery. I do think that there's a concern. My biggest concern is that the young core, the young players, the Carter Harts, the Phil Myers, the Travis Sanheims, the Travis Konechny's, these are the guys that they were building around, and they were expected to take another step up. And they haven't done that. In fact, they haven't even gone level. Most of them have dipped, except for Joel Farabee, who still had a really good year. Ivan Provorov's been okay. He hasn't been as good as last year, but I wouldn't put him in the category of a guy who's fallen way back. But some of that young core just hasn't stepped up the way they thought. And that's a concern, because now Chuck Fletcher, as he goes into this offseason, has to think, all right, are these guys the real deal? Is Carter Hart the real deal in net? Is Travis Sanheim a true second pair defenseman? Is Ivan Provorov a true number one defenseman? Is Travis Konechny a team leading scorer kind of player? All these questions were not there last year. We were all, yeah, on all of them. And now they are at least question marks. And so he goes into the offseason. Does he trade one of them to mix up the culture? His veterans, who the fans will call for, the Jake Voraceks and Claude Giroux's, their contracts are very hard. Well, Claude Giroux has no move, so he can't be moved unless he approves it. And Jake Voracek's contract is hard to move. So, if you were to move the veterans at this point, I'm not sure, A, how much you would get because of those contracts, and really how much it's changing the culture, because as you move forward with this, it's the young players that have to be taking this team over. I really think the veterans, Couturier and Giroux and Voracek and Van Riemsdyk, for the most part, have played pretty much as we expected them to this year. It's the young players who I think have dropped back, and that's a major concern. We have to make the chain, and Chuck Fletcher, most importantly, has to make the assessment of whether he can go forward and continue to build with these young guys. And the one last thing I will point out, Mark, is that in a year with so much different, no fans early, few fans later, still no fans in some buildings, but more to the point, the schedule, especially after their COVID outbreak. Do you really want to evaluate this team coming off a year like that, or do you give them not a complete pass, because there's data, these were games, you have to look at them, but do you want to make a huge change in terms of the culture of the team and the direction of the team off a COVID year like this? That's a risk. So a lot for him to think about.
Mm-hmm. One thing I did notice was Shane Gostisbehere has looked like a better defenseman since being put on waivers. I don't know if that was the right shakeup or not. What have you noticed from Ghost over the last couple of weeks?
I think Ghost got to the point where, he'd been a healthy scratch over the years here and there, and then again this year. And then finally he gets waived and clears waivers. I think he realized, this is it. I got to get going. He's maturing. He's getting married. He's now to the point where he is a man. He's not a kid anymore. I think he's taken full responsibility for everything. He's been one of the Flyers after games when they play poorly, who really basically tells it like it is, doesn't sugarcoat anything. And he came back from real adversity and played really well. For Shane, though, he has to be able to show that consistency and do it for not just a 5 or 6 game stretch, but a 20 or 25 game stretch. You can have a blip here and there, but you can't fall back for 4 or 5 games. And when I say fall back, I'm talking about the defensive intensity. He's never going to be a defensive defenseman, but that doesn't mean he can't play with defensive intensity. And he has been since that waiver situation. So he's really responded well. I'm really proud of him, because when you look at a guy, he could easily have just said, this organization hates me. I'm done. And he didn't do that at all. He reacted well.
Yeah. Now, another guy that could have packed it in, but for totally different reasons, is Sam Morin. And I have every time he's been able to step on the ice, my eyes have not left him. Like, I have just been watching him on the ice, because I'm really rooting for this guy to have a successful NHL career after all the stuff that he's been through. What do you make of Sam Morin? Is a future defenseman on this team, or somebody that do you think will just be here to prove himself this year and then maybe move on?
Jury is still out, but it has been great to see him at least get some kind of run in the NHL so far. Because he's come through so much. I mean, we all remember the time when he fought all the way back, redoing his knee, and gets one game and goes down to the minors to get some time in, gets hurt, and the knee is hurt, and now he's out again, has to do that whole rehab, and he's had other injuries too. So he's had to fight back through so much, and he's a great kid. And he's an element they need, that sandpaper element. The question is, can he hold his own as an every shift defenseman out there? And I've seen signs that he can. There have also been times where it looks like he's still feeling his way a little bit. So that will be something to watch in these last 11 games. I don't think he's playing in the game tonight, but I think he'll be in and out of the lineup. They do have some other young defensemen. Cam York might get a game or two. So they have a couple of other young guys too, Jackson Cates. So this could be interesting to see how Alain Vigneault gets all the defensemen in and gets them playing time down the stretch. But I know he wants to see some of the young guys, and Samarin still qualifies as one of those.
Just the next guy I wanted to ask you about, the head coach of this team, the bench boss himself, Alain Vigneault. At his press conference last week, Chuck Fletcher, basically when he was asked about making coaching changes, the answer was no.
It was no, and it was no fast.
It was a quick one. There's no hesitation there. If you could evaluate Alain Vigneault for me on the job he's done this season, again, with all the struggles that you already mentioned in talking about this season, but also his coaching style and intensity with this Flyers hockey team.
I mean, he's a great coach. I mean, his resume already speaks of that. He's taken several teams deep into the playoffs. His teams seem to react well to him, and he did a great job last year. Almost everything he touched turned to gold last year. He has been, I think, although he might not admit to this, at wit's end as to what to do with this team because they are so inconsistent. They'll come out and play a solid game, and then they'll come out and get beat 9-0. They'll come out and have a great first period, and then come out and be completely out of sorts in the second period. So they are very inconsistent, and that drives a coach batty. I really think if I wanted to go to one key that has really hurt this team, it's because of the compressed schedule, and especially compressed after they had their COVID outbreak, that they have had so few regular hockey practices. They've had the game day skates. They've had a quick skate here and there, but when they're playing 5 games in 7 days, there's just no time for practice. And he is a detailed practice coach, one of the best practice coaches I've ever seen. Every drill is for a reason. There's very little standing around. He does it, and the players say the same thing. And you could see it last year with how much impact his practices were having on the team. Well, he hasn't had that option really for 2 months now, and I think the fundamentals have slipped. And this team needs to be an up-tempo, in-your-face, forechecking kind of team. Getting you to make the mistakes, and they just haven't been able to do that on a consistent basis. It'll be interesting to see how they play tonight because they finally had 3 days off. They had a full day off and then 2 full practices. I don't think they've had 2 full practices in back-to-back days since January. So it'll be interesting to see if they come out and play a really good game, on Thursday night. Then you start to, that theory might begin to take hold that maybe that's really what has been the big problem. Then we go back to what we were talking about earlier. Do you not evaluate this season again in terms of the players because they didn't have any practice time? I mean, young players do need practice time more than the veterans. Now, it hasn't hurt Joel Farabee too much, but it certainly seems to have hurt some of the other players. So we'll see, but practice is the lack of it has hurt. So for AV, I don't think you can fire a coach. I mean, I've seen stranger things happen, certainly in the NHL where the shelf life isn't very long for head coaches, but it's tough to fire a coach off of this season. Again, with the COVID outbreak, with all the changes that have gone on, goaltending's not been great. It's tough to blame a coach, at least the head coach, for the goaltending being weak. And it has been, admittedly, for the last 2/3 of the season. I mean, not counting the 11 games we still have to play, but at least for the last 20 to 25 games, maybe 30, it hasn't been really good. So it would be tough to lay this one on Alain Vigneault. You can say fairly that Vigneault and a veteran coaching staff. I mean, it's as veteran as any staff in the NHL. They've all been, most of them have been head coaches. Lappy hasn't been a head coach, but they're all either experienced assistant coaches or they've been head coaches. So you'd think if there were answers out there, that among them they would come up with them. And they've tried. They've changed things. They've tried giving the team a lot of time off. They've tried driving them a little bit. It just not much has worked there. So I got to think that, it's beyond coaching what's gone wrong this year. I really don't. He hasn't. You can safely say, as I was about to say, they didn't come up with any answers. They didn't come up with the answers to turn it around. But I'm not sure any coach would. It's just been one of those strange years for the Flyers.
Yeah, it certainly has. And just real quick, last thing on the Flyers, Cam York, you said you think he will be up here for a couple of games before the season lets out?
Well, what really hurt Cam was the COVID outbreak with the Phantoms because they sent him down there to get a couple games. He hasn't played since COVID again. The COVID problems Michigan had knocked them out of the tournament. So he hasn't played a hockey game in a while. So I know they want to get him a 1 or 2 or 3 games down there with the Phantoms. And then as soon as they signed him, they got an outbreak. So they shut it down and he didn't have anywhere to play. Jeez. So now they're starting back up. He's, I think, going to get a game or 2 in down there. We'll see. I think they want to get a look at him for sure. I mean, the college kids, remember, they've played. He's played at the World Juniors, of course, was the captain of the gold medal winning team and played in college. So they're not like junior kids coming out at 19 or 20. They're a year or 2 older. He's younger, but he's at least had 2 years of college experience plus the World Junior experience. So I think that they feel he's a little more experienced than your average rookie. And I think they might give him a shot. But it depends on, how things go with the Phantoms. They said, he'll let us know if he's ready.
Certainly. And I'll keep my fingers crossed for that, Jim Jackson. Now, you mentioned it earlier. You're going to have a little bit more free time this summer is what it's looking like right now. And I know that when the Phillies made their announcement and you made your announcement, I know you were just overwhelmed by the reaction and how much people were going to miss you during the baseball broadcasts.
Surprised me. I mean, Marc, I'm sure maybe even when you started this show up, is anyone out there? Sometimes I was doing the pre or post game show and you're wondering, right? You don't really know. You get some Twitter feedback here and there. Rain delays, we get calls, but the rain delays weren't the pre and post. And the innings, of course, I know people are listening to the games, but it's like you just kind of wonder. And when I sent the goodbye or put the goodbye tweet out, I mean, it was days of just getting messages, and I was floored. And I remember my reaction was, I wish I had known that this many people really cared about the pre and post, and that they were listening. And you wish you knew it when you were doing it, right? You got to assume from now on. I'm going to assume that people are always listening out there. But it did. It helped. It was a painful day or two, and I found out it was a shock. And it did help to get all that love and respect from people. Oh, there were some people who got some shots in too. That always happens on Twitter. But it was nice. It did help me get through that. It's been an interesting 3 or 4 months since with the coaching, and I'm also getting into voicing and narrating audiobooks, which has been a lot of fun. I find topics that I like, and it's books that I'd read anyway, so not get paid to read it into a microphone. So I've been doing some of that, and we'll have a time. I have an in-ground pool that we put in about 7 years ago now, and I barely have time for it. I do a quick dip, go to the Phillies game, so barely had any time for it. I'm going to have time for it this year, and I might get back. I haven't golfed in about 15 years. I might get back.
Oh, my goodness.
And I haven't taken a summer vacation outside of during the baseball All-Star break for 15 years. So there are some things that I'll get to do, which, I've kind of settled into the fact that that's not a bad thing.
No, more time with the lovely family, more time to do house projects. I am curious because that's when dads get the outdoor work in. All right, does Jim Jackson have some outdoor work he has to do this summer?
Well, I still have a landscaper, I'll tell you that much. But I know my wife's already been talking about this, working our deck, staining our deck, repairing it in some areas. We have an older deck. We were just going to get a new one, but part of the thing with losing the Phillies is I have lost a little money. So we're gonna actually try to repair it instead of buying a new one. And knowing my skills, Farzy, in terms of around the house, and it's going to take a while. I'm not very good.
You know what? If you do end up hiring somebody, I need play-by-play of Jim Jackson doing play-by-play of the guys fixing your deck.
Well, I'm trying to think of the worst fielder the Phillies ever had and my play-by-play of him, because that'll be me, clanking this, dropping that, But anyhow, I'll keep you out. Now, you told me before we went on the air that you used to do decks, so maybe I hire you and your brother.
My brother Michael and my dad would always, whenever it was time to stain the deck, which was like every couple of years, it was like, all right, boys, let's go. And then we put on the raggy clothes, we'd grab the pails and the brushes, and we'd be I saved the shirt. I used to have this Russell Athletic sleeveless shirt that was it was the same color, but it used to be white, but it was the same color as my parents' deck. It still is to this day. But yeah, I'd love to help you, JJ.
You have a weathered shirt that's weatherproof. You see, it works.
That's true.
But, I'm sure I will be covered. I'll probably be, face will be covered as well. I mean, I'm not very good at it, but it is weird. The family's actually looking forward to, because we haven't done like a family project in the summertime in ages. So my kids are grown now, but they're still around. They're 23 and 20. My son he plays college hockey at Nazareth, and he'll be back. So he'll be doing some of the work as well. You got to get the 20-year-old son to work.
Damn right. Crack that whip, Dad. Crack that whip. Right. You reminded me of something when you said rain delays. With rain delay, I don't know if I missed anything more than Jim Jackson rain delay radio with the callers. You mentioned the callers. Hey, Jim. Yeah, you're on the air. Jim, is it still raining? Yeah, it's still raining. All right. End of the call.
It was interesting. There were some that were that would come up with questions where I'd be whoa. But let me tell you this: it was in general fun, because there were sometimes I'd look at the clock and I'd say, "Wow, this rain delay's been 2 hours," and it would feel like it was a half hour. When you're talking to people, and sometimes they're infuriating you, maybe you're doing the same to them, whatever. But you're having interaction with people. There were a couple of callers that were always negative. There were a couple that saw things as positive no matter what. And then there were some that were in the middle somewhere. But it was fun. I'll miss the interaction. I'll also miss the interaction with fans in the concourse when we used to do the pre down there in the broadcast booth down there. And to talk to the fans, talk the many guests. It's one thing I've been noticing. We've been watching movies and things. Hey, there's Jamie Foxx. I had him on the show. There's Rob Reiner. I had him on. There's people that were all, we had him on the show, and so I'll miss that too. But yeah, the rain delays were interesting.
I can tell you this. I know that Kristen Chenoweth is a big fan of yours. I know. That.
She's the best.
Yeah, I know she's a big fan. My wife, my wife did the PR for her through her company, and they just all said that JJ was always great to talk to before the Phillies game, whenever she's saying the national anthem.
I'm humbled. I mean, she's a legitimate superstar now, Mark. She's you and I are down here. She's up here. She's a Tony. I believe it. She hosted the Tonys, but did she win the Tony? I think she did too. I don't ever buy one from her. And obviously West Wing, and I mean she's just a bundle of energy. I mean, I had so many favorite guests. Billie Jean King was an amazing guest. We had her come on the show, and we used to, before we had the booth, we had this table set up, and it was a table on wheels, and sometimes the fans wouldn't realize, and they lean on it, it would move. And she had set a soda up, and somebody leaned on it, and the soda spilled all over the place. It's just as we're coming on the air. So I'm getting the engineer, and I'm like, we got to get this cleaned up, and we're cleaning. And Billie Jean King's down on her hands and knees. She's cleaning. I'm like, this is Billie Jean King. And she would. I said, Billie Jean, you don't have to do that. Oh, absolutely I do. I mean, she's an amazing person. I got to talk to her just about every year as well. So
that's great.
It was those were a lot of fun.
All right, JJ, look at all the things we just covered right there. What did I start with? Versatility. Kids, young adults, whoever, adults, older people, whatever. You want to get some broadcasting tips? How about this? I love the way this is phrased. How to be a pro in broadcasting from a pro in broadcasting. You can get the information down here at the bottom by emailing JJ at jjbroadcastingcoaching@gmail.com. And small group classes, one-on-one coaching, demo review, and critique, all from not just a great guy, but obviously a great broadcaster. Jim Jackson, I love you, the great Jim Jackson. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure, Farzy. Great to see your show going so well. Not that I had any doubts, because you are a trip.
Thank you.
And also Nick Foligno lookalike, as I've told you before.
Where did he just get traded to?
He just got traded on Toronto. He's
Toronto. I was going to text you.
Amazing, Farzy, with the division set up the way it is this year. I don't remember anything that's happened in the other divisions, because they don't play those teams anymore. Yeah, he got traded to Toronto. Yeah.
I'm going to have to do a side-by-side after the interview of me and Nick Foligno to see if Jim Jackson's right. But I think you're right.
I think you'll be surprised. I mean, he has a little more hair than you, but not but that's it. I mean, you're exact. I'm not sure if he's sporting the beard right now, though, but he has in the past. I'm not sure if he has it right now. Wait till the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs. He'll definitely have a beard, and I bet you you'll be surprised how much you look like.
Doppelgangers.
Absolutely.
Jim Jackson, Flyers broadcaster, obviously NBC Sports Philadelphia. Check him out as well when it comes to broadcast coaching as well. JJ, thanks so much. Great catching up with you, brother.
Take care, Farzy. Thanks.
The great Jim Jackson joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line. Always a pleasure talking to the great Jim Jackson. That's how I'd always introduce him when I had to host Leading Off back in the day. And I always say, now next, the great Jim Jackson. And it was my honor when I produced the 700 level, or produced, when I did the hosted the 700 level show for NBC. They had to tease the show during Flyers games every once in a while. So JJ would return the favor and say, and don't miss out on the 700 level show with host Marc Farzetta. And he would say, with host the great Marc Farzetta. And the producer would say, really, the great? And JJ would be like, it's an inside joke. You don't understand. Anyway, thanks to JJ for coming on. Always a pleasure talking to him. How about this? Check out our friends over at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. So check them out. Also, do what I do. Bet with DraftKings. You want to make some money? You bet with DraftKings. Basketball teams entering their final month of the regular season. They're gearing up for the playoffs. Some teams are locks. Some teams not so much. Sixers, obviously a lock. Well, how about this? Turn $1 into $100 of free bets. That's what they're offering right now on America's top-rated sportsbook app, DraftKings Sportsbook. How do you turn $1 into $100? Here's what you do. You get 100 to 1 odds on a basketball team of your choosing, simply hitting a 3. That's it. You just have to hit a 3. And if you're a new customer, you win $100 in free bets on a $1 bet. Your team doesn't even have to win. That's 100 to 1 odds of the team you're choosing just hits a 3. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free bets if the basketball team of your choosing simply hits a 3. That's promo code Farzy to turn $1 into $100 in free bets for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Folks, I've been telling you all the time about Steak and Maine in the heart of Northeast Maryland. You got to check it out. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that and an extensive wine list. That also includes the Cavada family wines. How about this? Cavada Cellars Wines. Tony Cavada, the man that owns and runs the place, he'll hook you up with some great wine. Every day, they're open for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland, voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself. Go to steakandmaine.com for more information. That's steakandmaine.com. I won a little thing. I won a little thing on the old social media app. I won a little thing with FanUp. I've downloaded the FanUp app. If you haven't, what are you doing? I got challenged by my buddy Kerry. He was like, hey, what do you think about this for Joel Embiid? What do you think about his point total for tonight? What do you think? I said, over. So that's what I did. I got on DraftKings, made a bet with a couple of friends, a little bit of a gentleman's bet, got some points out of it. So I rise on the leaderboard there. And I also can cash those prizes out for some great cash those points out for some great brand prizes. I can also win some cash for myself also. The days of playing fantasy sports alone are over, and that's why you got to get the FanUp app. Go to the App Store, download the FanUp app, get points, get money. Go ahead and get some brand prizes. We've mentioned the Peloton that they gave away, courtesy of FanUp. So make sure you download the FanUp app. Use promo code FanUp. Get 2,000 bonus points right out of the gate when you use promo code FanUp when you download the FanUp app in the App Store. 2,000 bonus points. That is FanUp. May the best fan win. Let's get to our social media check-in, brought to you by the great people of Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com. First off, I just saw this here. April, who comments on the show, I got a BTMM degree from Temple in 2005. It's about time someone is helping others learn a new way to do things well in the business. JJ is a genius. He absolutely is. April, question for you. I got a BTMM degree from Temple University in 2005. Are we friends? Did we go to school together? Or was it like, did you graduate like in the winter and like one of those things? One of them Johns? I don't know. Anyway, do we know each other? Matt's checking in on the program. Fun. JJ is great to talk to. Mally's checking in saying what's up. He wants to know when I'm going to a Steak and Maine road trip. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty damn good idea. I'll eat oysters at 6:00 in the morning. I don't care. I got a rock iron, cast iron stomach, folks. Mark, do you think Spencer Howard stays in the rotation? I do. I think that he actually does earn a spot in the rotation before the year's out. Because as you're pointing out here, Ronald, you're saying that Matt Moore isn't it. I concur. I very strongly concur with that statement. This rotation is not going to be the rotation for the season, and it's not just because of injury. It's because, well, injury will give opportunity, and I think Spencer Howard will take advantage of that opportunity. You know, I didn't mention him when I was talking about the Phillies, and I'm glad you brought him up there, Ronald. Thank you. Dominant in what was it? The 7th inning, the 6th. When did he get into the game? 8th inning? Whenever, I think it was the 8th inning. He just blew through the lineup. An inning and a third, I believe, is what he actually totaled yesterday. And 3 strikeouts, I believe it was, striking out the side in the 8th inning. If I'm not, I think he came in the 7th, but pitched the 8th and just was dominant. His fastball had life, 95, 96 miles per hour. Wasn't afraid to try to throw a little bit off the plate, try to get those calls. Also threw a couple of pitches at the knees. One was called for a ball. The other was called for a strike. That actually, I think it was Brandon Crawford that went chasing it. So I thought he pitched masterfully yesterday in his inning in the third. I hope he earns a spot in the starting rotation. Otherwise, I think that his talent is just being wasted in a bullpen spot. I'd love to see him get that spot. I was surprised they went with Matt Moore in the spot that they did in the rotation. I'd much rather invest in some more youth and see what Spencer Howard can give you in that rotation. So I hope that's the case moving forward. Get your swimmies on, JJ, says Pete. Hopefully he'll have some time to swim. What else do we have here? Phillies letting him go for financial reasons. John saying, well, come on, check Forbes. Yeah, they make some money, them Phillies. So, yeah, I call BS on that. Thanks for everyone that checked in here on our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Now the moment you've all been waiting for. This is our morning rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. Got a car for every budget. We got a lot to get to here, so I'm going to try to get to it in the most rush fashion possible for our morning rush before we tell you about our big bets segment. First, here it is. Nick Sirianni talking about finding ways to gauge a player's level of competing, how competitive they are. Nick Sirianni on a cut that you will hear a million times, and maybe we'll just put it on a T-shirt. I don't know. Here is Nick Sirianni.
I'll tell you, I think some of you guys are wondering, like, what game? We didn't go earth-shattering on these games, right? I played a couple of them at rock, paper, scissors, right? That was as easy as that. Rock, paper, scissors. Let's see how competitive you are. I'm competitive. I'm going to be talking trash to him. Did you talk trash back to me, right? Jeopardy. There's different ways to do it. It looks a lot of different ways, but our coaches got so creative with this, like Jeff Stoutland, Brian Johnson. Like, they did just such – Aaron Moorhead. They all did a great job, right? Tracy Rocker, Jeremiah Washburn, they all did a great job of just figuring out how to compete, because everyone's compete looks a little different. Like, if I get up there, I play them rock, paper, scissors. They got a little more creative than I did at times. So it was awesome, though, because it did anything you compete at. When you compete with somebody that's competitive, they're going to go at you no matter what game you're playing. Leslie, you can play rock, paper, scissors when we get in person together.
All right. That would be great. Okay. Ruben.
I want to pay to see that. I want to pay to see Les Bowen play rock, paper, scissors with Nick Sirianni. I would pay good money for that. Nick Sirianni is being made fun of a lot. He's being criticized a lot for this comment. Here is exactly how I feel about this. I love it. You got to get creative in the world we're in today. If you want to gauge somebody's competitive nature, sure, why not play a little game with them? I have no issue with this, no negative thing to say about it. It's getting creative. It's finding a way to achieve a goal, and the goal was to find out how competitive somebody is. It might sound dumb. It is low-hanging fruit to make fun of, but I actually love this about Nick Sirianni. I love the idea of him trying to find a different way to gauge whether or not a player is competitive. And talking smack, fine. You want to talk smack about a little Rochambeau, a little rock, paper, scissors? By all means, go for it. I think this means with all the guest Jeopardy hosts that now Nick Sirianni has thrown his visor in the ring to try to be the next Jeopardy celebrity, if you will, the host. I'd see it. I'd love to see it. That'd be hilarious. Have the assets, state capitals, 400 there, Nick. Right. Okay. So, capital, it's Pennsylvania. This is the capital of Pennsylvania. What is Harrisburg? Right. Like that kind of thing. I think you do a great job doing it. I love the idea that this happened. I think it's hysterical. I also think that it is wildly low-hanging fruit because it is an easy thing to make fun of. I told you we're not going to make fun of it, but we are going to have fun with it because it is so damn unique. Nick Sirianni continues to come off to me to be like, for an older reference, Spicoli. Like he's almost like a frat guy. He just woke up and said, "Hey, the test is right now." What? And he's just giving you answers because it's based on passion, right? And that's kind of the way he does it. That is his demeanor, and I enjoy this about Nick Sirianni. I have no idea if he can coach or not. Here's what I do know. Here's what we can take away from Nick Sirianni. Just him in his own right, isolated. He loves football, or he loves ball, as he likes to call it. He loves competitive people. He loves talented people, and he loves working. That definitely comes through. He also pantomimed having a screen behind him to illustrate how he would use players in game situations for Howie and Andy Weidel, so they could better understand why he would like a certain player in the draft. I thought that was great. That was something that it seemed like Howie Roseman was almost caught off guard by when Nick Sirianni started to do that. The fact that he would actually physically show him film about how he would use Devontae Smith. And he didn't mention names, but Jalen Waddle, how he would use guys like that in the draft. So, look, it's easy to make fun of. It is a silly thing. It is a funny thing, but it's also a creative way to try to gauge whether or not a person is competitive, just to see how they handle themselves in that little situation. And if you're interviewing these players and doing, how many interviews was it? Like 150 interviews from the Senior Bowl. If you're doing that, you got to do something to liven it up a little bit anyway, and that's a way to do it, and that's something that Nick Sirianni also talked about yesterday. So as far as the idea, I got nothing negative to say about it. Good for him, good for the Eagles coaching staff and trying to be creative. Now Howie. Howie was asked about why he traded from 6 to 12. Here's how Howie addressed that question.
Well, the reason we traded back from 6 to 12 was because flexibility creates opportunity. And for us, having an extra first-round pick, well, when you go back and look at things that are hard to acquire, that's one of the hardest things to acquire is a team's first-round pick in the following year and to move back 6 spots. But what we really had to do is sit there and go, who are the 12 players in this draft we would feel really good about? Are there 12 players in this draft that we feel really good about? And I think that's what we're going to do throughout this draft. If you move back, it's because you feel like you have a bunch of guys that are the same value and you'd be really happy getting one and getting the extra volume from that pick. You know, if you move up, it's because your board kind of drops off at that point. And if you select, it's because you feel like it's the last player in that sort of range. And so when we discussed this, I think those were really the things we were discussing about moving back. And when you're moving back early, you have to feel like you're getting a premium, and we felt like we were getting a premium to do that.
Yeah, so basically they found better value in it. But here's the real reason that they did it. Quarterbacks are going to be off the board. And this is what I mentioned earlier. This is a little thing Howie said that kind of went under the radar yesterday. Here's Howie talking about really why they moved back.
Well, I'd say that when we get the call and we're having the discussions with Miami and we got to figure out who they're trading with to be able to answer their question whether we would move back. And so once we found out that it was San Francisco, we knew that 3 quarterbacks were going to be off the board in the first 3 picks. So it allowed us even to lock in even more on who the guys would be that would be available at 12.
All right. So right away they started thinking about 12 the minute they made the trade, and that's obvious because they're not in the contention for, I guess, who they really wanted, which was a quarterback. Whether it was Zach Wilson, whether it was whoever it might be, Trey Lance, whoever it might be. Now, Trey Lance isn't going to go in the top 3. But it's obvious that they wanted to go quarterback. And if you're saying that San Francisco is jumping ahead of you and they're taking a quarterback, that means you're going to have 3 quarterbacks that are going to be off the board. Eagles are going for a quarterback. I have no doubt in my mind that that's what they wanted to do in this draft. The minute San Francisco jumped ahead of them and they knew they were going to take a quarterback, I think that's the minute they said, thanks, but no thanks, we'll move back. But again, the other problem here is that we knew that already. We knew that the 3 quarterbacks were probably going to be off the board. At least 3 quarterbacks were going to be off the board in the first 5 picks. That meant that you were either going to have Jamar Chase or you're going to have Kyle Pitts. So why not go ahead and get one of those dominant players right now? I really do feel both those players are going to be dominant players in the NFL. Kyle Pitts more so, which is why now most mock drafts have him off the board at 4 to the Falcons. But I'm looking at this draft right now, and I'm still not over it. I told you tomorrow we'll start the I'm going to stop being a big fat baby and start giving you the guys that I really like. I've mentioned Jalen Waddle enough. I like him. I've mentioned Devontae Smith. I like him. I've mentioned Patrick Surtain. I'd be happy with him, but I wouldn't be ecstatic about it. But bottom line is the Eagles saw that their quarterbacks were going to be gone and said, thanks, but no thanks, and decided to move back to 12. Still a possibility for them to move back up into the top 10, although I doubt, I really don't see that happening. Finally, Mike K, NBA.com, friend of the show, asked Howie Roseman about his draft history and how really not a lot of people have confidence in how they get things done here in Philadelphia. So here's Howie talking about his draft history.
We're proud of our group of scouts and our front office who have contributed to our team. It hasn't always been perfect. The draft is an inexact science. I mean, when you look at hit rates throughout the draft and where you're picking, whether it's in the first round and going down less, and you look at the rest of the league, it's certainly an inexact science. We're constantly striving to do better. But at the same time, we have a lot of good players on this team who've been through those drafts and been part of the draft process. But this process this year with the coaches, with the scouts, has allowed us to really sit down and talk about a lot of these things and figure out the best way to maximize our 11 picks in this draft. Obviously, even looking forward to next year and already having 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, that's exciting. And we're really excited about the opportunity to add to this football team next week.
Nick Sierra and then Tim McMahon. Oh,
We're all excited to see what happens here. Mac Jones was the other name I was looking for, and Justin Fields, obviously. Although I don't think Justin Fields goes in the top 3. It's wild to me that, like, what is he going to say about his own draft record? And anytime anybody goes to it's not an exact science, that kind of makes you think, yeah, they know this has been a struggle. And if Howie needs to prove his worth anywhere, it's in this draft, and he needs to hit on picks in this draft that we see impactful plays from this upcoming season. And probably the position that's been most evasive for Howie Roseman in his entire time here in Philadelphia has been the wide receiver position. He needs to draft somebody, whether that's Jalen Reagor actually coming out this year and balling out, or that is whoever it might be that they end up taking in the second round, third round at the wide receiver spot. Because as much as I'd like to see them take Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith in the first round, I don't see him going wide receiver. I see him drafting for need and talent, trying to get that combination of both, and I think that more falls on the lines of the Patrick Surtain. So that's what I think we can expect from the Eagles, but we'll continue to talk about it as it goes on. But I wanted to make sure you heard from Howie himself, and I wanted to make sure you heard more from the press conference than just rock, paper, scissors, basically. That was our Morning Rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars. How about our Big Bet segment? Big Bets brought to you by DraftKings and DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Get in on the action with DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook app. I'm on a little bit of a roll now. My official pick last night was the Knicks. I believe they were at the Knicks were at +1.5 to beat the Hawks last night at Madison Square Garden. Trey Young actually goes out last night, so he doesn't play most of the third quarter, all the fourth quarter. He doesn't play overtime. That was a bit of a bad break for people that were betting the Hawks in this game. It was bad beat for people that bet the Hawks last night. I did not. I bet the Knicks, as I told you to bet the Knicks last night. They did win. They won in overtime. They covered, so that's a win. I also told you I really liked Joel Embiid getting his over 32.5 points. He went off for 38 last night, so hopefully you cash in on those 2 bets that I advised you on. The bet I like tonight, Bulls took a tough loss last night. They're back at it against the Hornets at home tonight. Bulls are going off at -2.5, favorites to win that game. I like the Bulls covering 2.5 against the Hornets. That'll be my big bet for tonight on DraftKings. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is the Farzy Show. Jim Hyden produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. We got Sixers we're going to talk about tomorrow. Sixers-Bucks. Big game tonight. First of a 2-game set in Milwaukee against the Bucks. So look forward to talking to you, hopefully, about a Sixers win. Sixers I last saw were going off at a +6, so they're a 6-point underdog, I believe, on DraftKings right now going up against the Bucks. We'll see what the roster looks like with Ben Simmons and Seth Curry, and Tobias Harris. But Jim Hyden produced the program, Buzz Sports and Entertainment Production. Thanks for watching the Farzy Show from the Steven Singer Studios. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.